Hello everyone, welcome to part 4 of the Akim 2020 virtual trek. Today we'll be continuing our journeys in the southern Arava and more or less crossing the road from where we were at the Evrona farms. So let's go. Okay, here we are in the Evrona farms looking north, and we are going to cross the road to Amram's pillars. Okay, now you can't really drive across the road now. It's a lot easier to do it virtually like we just did, because the road from Eilat all the way up to the new airport, Ramon International Airport, which is here opposite Be'er Ora, the entire road is divided now. So to get from here to there, you have to drive up to Be'er Ora, do a U-turn, or the airport, do a U-turn, come back down and then take a right turn at the National Park sign, the brown sign, up a dirt track to here. Now, when you get to up the dirt track, you get to a fork in the road. You can either take it left to Nachal Shoret, which is the Black Canyon, or actually blackened or blackish canyon, or a right to Nachal Amram. Let's take a quick look at Nachal Shoret. First of all, that's it here. It's a lovely little hike. You can't really see. You can drive all the way up here and park your car and then take a walk. And this is the mouth of the canyon, a few mates about to head up it. And the name, of course, Shoret, comes from the rocks that line the canyon, which are magmatic basalt and gabbro, which are very dark. We'll talk geology on another leg of the trip, or that particular geology. But today, we're going back to the fork and driving up here, parking our car in this area, and then taking a 15-minute walk up to Amram's pillars. It's a very easy walk for all the family. There's no climbing. Oh, you can climb a few rocks if you want to, but nothing difficult. And these are Amram's pillars, for those who have never seen them before. Reminiscent of Solomon's pillars, which are much larger in the adjacent valley of Timna. The advantage of this site is that it's small, it's accessible, and it's free. So if you happen to be passing, it's a nice place to pop in for half an hour just to see these phenomena. Now, what are we looking at here? Well, first of all, the name Amram. It's not the biblical Amram. The name is based on the traditional Arab name for the hill behind it, known as Jebel Amrani. And the Israeli cartographers took the same name and they gave it to the wadi and the hill. So it's Nachal Amram, Amram's pillars. They are made of a white quartz sandstone. The red color comes from leaching of iron out of the mud layers up here. Okay, and the mud leak, the iron leaches down and forms a red patina on the face of the white quartz sandstone. Now, if you go up to the pillars, which you can do, please don't start poking and banging them because you will destroy the patina. Look at them, admire them, but leave them alone. Now, this area is actually a nice place to see, a nice microcosm in which to see a lot of very interesting geological effects and phenomena. And yes, geology can be interesting. The first, of course, is copper mining. If you look at some of these hills here, you can't really see it in this picture, but if you were there, we would look up here to the right, you'd see some of the rocks had green veins through them. Now, green veins often, but not always, often signify the presence of copper. And in this particular case, they are copper veins, okay? And there was plenty of copper mining going on in this area, just like there was in the Timna Valley adjacent. Copper mining began in this area in what was known as the Chalcolithic period, spelt Chalcolithic but pronounced Chalcolithic. That was about 4,500 to 3,600 BCE, so 6,500 to 7,500 years ago. That's right, 5,500 to 6,500 years ago, sorry. And it was so named because Chalcolithic means bronze, copper, Stone Age. Chalcolithic. Why the archaeologists could not call it the Copper Stone Age, I do not know. I mean, after all, the next age in their historical drama was the Bronze Age and then the Iron Age. They didn't call it the Ferritic Age, but they had to call the Chalcolithic Age the Chalcolithic Age and spell it Chalcolithic just to confuse us. Oh well. Another very interesting effect in the area is this, and this is a geological fault. Now, not all geological faults are on the scale of the San Andreas Fault or even the Dead Sea Rift. Some of them are very small, and it lets us access them and understand what we're looking at. This is known as a slip fault. And to give you an idea of scale, from top to bottom, we're talking about half a meter. And it's on a wall just to the left of the Amram pillars. Let's look at a schematic to understand what's going on. We're talking about this particular fault here. When you pull a rock apart, and a rock is a brittle material, it faults along a diagonal. And as it faults, it is pulled apart. And the right wall, known as the hanging wall, slips versus the foot wall, the stationary wall. And that's what we see here. This side of the wall, this hanging wall, has slipped versus this wall. This line used to be in line with that. This used to be in line with that. This used to be in line with that. Instead, it has flipped down to the right. And of course, this is the most interesting geological phenomenon in the area, related to Solomon's Pillars. These are Solomon's Pillars in Park Timna, which is the same, which has been created by the same geological phenomenon that created Amram's Pillars, but on a much grander scale. And what was that phenomenon? You might think at first it's caused by wind erosion or water erosion, and you would be wrong. Yeah, in fact, it's caused by the opposite of water erosion. Let me explain. It's a phenomenon known as taphony. We're not quite sure where the word came from. In any case, taphony is a phenomenon unique in arid areas. What happens is the air has, even though it's an arid area, has some moisture, and it also has salts in the air, particularly because, as we talked about, there are salt pans not far from here in the Arava Valley. So there's all this salt and a bit of moisture floating around the air, and that salt tends to adhere to the exposed rock walls and gets in all the nooks and crannies and cracks in the walls. Now, when it does rain, and it does rain occasionally, the water runs down that rock face, but not evenly, because the walls themselves are not even. Some areas get more water runoff, some get less, and some get none at all. Now, where the water runs is called a gutter. And as it runs down the rock face, it washes away that adhered salt layer. In the other areas, it leaves the salt behind. Now, that salt just doesn't sit there. It, in fact, absorbs more salt and moisture from the air, and it begins to grow crystals. And the crystals get bigger and bigger inside these cracks in the rock. And as they grow, they crack the rock. And a new rock face is formed. Next rains come along, that face gets more salt adhering to it. Next rains come along, and just like before, no salt is washed away in that particular area. Those crystals grow and break more rock. And so over millennia, you get gorges cut out of the rock face. And that is the taphony effect, and that's what we see here. In fact, the Solomon's Pillars are in fact a mega example of what is essentially a very micro process. Anyway, that's Amram's Pillars. I hope you enjoyed today's little journey, and we'll be continuing up north in our next session. See you later.